Chloe and I grew up in each other's pockets. Chloe Miller. You just wait. It was a perfectly normal morning during the summer after senior year. I'd pulled an all-nighter, meticulously planning how I was going to ask out the girl I'd been crushing on for months. I'd finally crashed sometime after midnight, only to be jolted awake by someone ripping the comforter off me. Here's the thing, I sleep naked, and on a summer morning, a teenage boy's biology is on full display. I blinked my eyes open to see Chloe, her strange gaze locked directly on my very awake, very proud little soldier. My eyes shot downwards. A hot flush of anger and embarrassment washed over me. I snatched the comforter back, clutching it to my waist as I yelled at her. The tips of her ears turned pink, but she didn't even have the decency to run. Instead, her eyes traveled up to my abs, and she planted her hands on her hips with a defiant smirk that said, "What are you going to do about it?" I scrambled to pull on a pair of boxers under the comforter, then launched myself off the bed, barefoot, and tackled her. She was maybe 5'5", and I easily tossed her onto my bed, raising my hand and landing 2 sharp smacks on her. But, are you ever going to learn? Don't you get personal space? I'm naked, and you just waltz in here and stare? Have you no shame? I was rattling off her list of crimes when I saw her shoulders start to shake. A soft whimpering sound followed. Crying? No way. This girl was a master manipulator. When had I ever come out on top in one of her fights? I reached out and turned her head towards me. As soon as her face was visible, a triumphant grin spread across it. Aunt Carol, Leo's hitting me. A knot of dread had just begun to form in my stomach when Chloe let out a blood-curdling shriek. 3 seconds later, my mom burst in, brandishing a spatula. My reflexes, unfortunately, are garbage. I was still half naked, pinning a disheveled-looking Chloe to my bed. To my mom, it looked like I was in the middle of doing something truly unspeakable to the teary-eyed, humiliated girl beneath me. Leo Thompson. My mother's roar sent a jolt through my entire body. I instantly let go of Chloe and stood there like a scolded dog. Mom, it's not what it looks like. It was Chloe, Before I could finish, Chloe's whimpers escalated into full-blown sobs, each one more heart-wrenching than the last. Get dressed and get out to the living room. Now, out of my mom's line of sight, Chloe shot me a victorious smirk before burying her face in my pillows to muffle her dramatic sniffles. She was such a drama queen. I could see right through her act, but my mom, apparently blinded by maternal rage, slapped me twice for good measure and shoved me out of my own bedroom. Chloe, sobbing, showed my mom the spot where I'd swatted her. 2 bright red palm prints were all the evidence they needed of my assault. That evening, my parents dragged me next door to the Miller's house to issue a formal apology. No matter how many times I tried to explain, my mom wouldn't listen. My dad tried to put in a good word for me, but one cold glare from my mother, and he clammed up. Chloe and I had always been close. We were the kind of friends who might as well have been joined at the hip. Sharing everything was normal. But as we got older, I started to understand that things had to change. I tried to pull back from the constant roughhousing. She, however, seemed to think I was just pushing her away. It only got worse after I started crushing on Jessica Monroe, and her looks turned even stranger. The fact that I was only a few hours older than her didn't matter. In my mind, she was and always would be the little sister I never had. And that's what happened, my mom was saying, her voice laced with theatrical gravity. Our Leo has always been a bit of a handful, but this is just unacceptable. Chloe has been through such an ordeal. We have to take responsibility. The 2 families sat on opposite couches in the Miller's living room. My mom's embellished retelling made it sound like I'd been seconds away from committing a federal crime. Every time I tried to open my mouth to protest, a death glare from her silenced me. Finally, after a lengthy discussion between my mom and Mrs. Miller, they came to a cheerful conclusion. They would announce our engagement now, and we would get married after we graduated from college. Mom, Another lethal look from my mom shut me up for good. Out of the 6 people in the room, I was the only one who objected. My tiny voice of protest was completely ignored. In my family's hierarchy of 3, I ranked 4th. The cat had more pull. It was different for Chloe. She was the princess of her family. Her parents doted on her. The only time she ever got so much as a scratch was when she was wrestling with me. Any other mishap would have her parents fussing over her for days. Now, she sat across from me, head bowed shyly, completely ignoring my furious glares. She looked so prim and proper, the very picture of innocence. My mom pulled me closer and unclasped the silver locket from her own neck. She smiled as she leaned over and fastened it around Chloe's. Mrs. Miller, beaming, hurried to a jewelry box and pulled out its twin. The two lockets were a perfect, matching pair. These were our lockets when we were girls, Mrs. Miller said. Before either of us was born, our parents had hoped to arrange a marriage. But we were both girls, so it didn't work out. It seems fitting that they become your promise to each other. We'll pick a date, get a couple of tables at a nice restaurant, and make it official. Listening to the adults chatter excitedly, a cold dread washed over me. I'd been crushing on Jessica for so long. I was going to ask her out today. How was I supposed to do that now after this stunt Chloe pulled? Sure, Chloe was pretty, but I'd always seen her as one of the guys. We knew each other better than we knew ourselves. I knew her feet got sweaty in the summer. She knew I'd wet the bed until I was 8. People say you're supposed to have a sweet, romantic dating period before you get married. What were we supposed to talk about? The time we made mud pies in the backyard? Or the time we found my dad's condoms and used them as water balloons? Later that night, I stood on my balcony, feeling like my life was spinning out of control. Just like that, I was engaged to Chloe. Was this it for me? What about my sweet, romantic love story? Didn't I deserve one? A pang of loss hit me as I thought of Jessica. So beautiful, and now, so completely out of reach. Hey, moron, enjoying the pity party? I didn't have a turn to know who it was. I just flipped her the bird. Our houses were so close that our balconies practically touched. You could open the window and reach right into the other person's house. We used to pass things back and forth all the time. My mom's fresh-baked cookies for her mom's muffins. My math homework for her English essays. We could have just used the front door, but for some reason, we always prefer the window. Strangely, I didn't feel a sense of repulsion at being engaged to her. It was more like a deep sense of unfairness, a desperate urge to fight back just for the sake of it. What's so great about Jessica, anyway? Chloe demanded, a hint of frustration in her voice. She's not as pretty as me. Her grades aren't as good as mine. All she does is cake on makeup. What does she have that I don't? Her question finally snapped me out of my trance. I turned to look at her. Fresh out of the shower, her skin was practically glowing. I had to admit, she was maybe a tiny bit prettier than Jessica. But man's gotta defend his crush. It's called sophistication. You wouldn't get it. It's what guys like. Chloe just stared at me, a complicated emotion swirling in her eyes. Then she turned and went back inside her room. A high school girl who didn't really know how to dress up, yet couldn't compete with Jessica's bold, confident style. That one hit a nerve, didn't it? Feeling smug, I took a pen and made a small mark on my window frame. We were even now. I had finally managed to draw in one of our verbal spars. It was a victory worth remembering. The next morning, I came down for breakfast to find an extra person at the table. A white blouse, a black blazer, a red plaid miniskirt, gleaming black stockings, and cute little black shoes with slouchy socks. A perfect, youthful beauty. When did we get such a stunning guest who was exactly my type? As I racked my brain trying to figure out who she was, she looked up and flashed me a brilliant smile. I froze. It was Chloe. Seeing my dumbstruck expression, she gave me a look that said, "See? I knew it." She smugly stretched out one long, black stocking leg and wiggled it at me. Was she testing me? Okay, fine. I admit it. I was tempted. After breakfast, my parents left for work, leaving just me and Chloe. Remembering the way my mom was looking at her, like a prized daughter-in-law, I felt like I couldn't afford to offend her. She deliberately sat closer to me on the couch. A cute clip held back her long, straight black hair, and a sweet fragrance wafted from her, making my head spin. It's about time. We should get going, I said, pretending to check my watch, desperate to break the spell. Today was the big all-class reunion, our last hurrah before everyone went their separate ways. It was a mandatory event. She didn't say anything, just stared at me. Her gaze felt like a predator sizing up its prey, and I had this sudden urge to flee. I escaped to my room and started rummaging through my closet for something decent to wear. The white t-shirt, with the beige chinos and the white sneakers. Her cool voice came from the doorway. Chloe was leaning against the frame, watching me pick out my clothes. "I'm changing. Close the door." I looked down at my bare torso and yelled at her, flustered. Chloe just said, "Oh," and obediently shut the door. From the inside, "Get out and close the door behind you. I know you just want to watch me change." My roar probably echoed through the entire building. Downstairs, our neighbor Mrs. Gable probably shook her head. Those two kids. So cute, always attached at the hip. I hear they're getting engaged. How wonderful. Dressed and ready, Chloe and I walked out of the building just as Mrs. Gable was getting her mail. I inwardly scoffed at Chloe, the shameless girl who was always eyeing my body, but I put on a smile for our neighbor, said a quick hello, and hurried away. We walked into the hotel and went straight to the private room. The moment we stepped inside, Chloe wrapped both her hand around my arm. So when everyone looked over, they saw us looking cozy and intimate. One of us sunny and casual, the other mature and stylish. A perfect match. Well, look what the cat dragged in. The happy couple, our class president joked. My eyes scanned the room and landed on the table in the back. Jessica was sitting right in the middle, looking our way. When she saw Chloe's arm linked with mine, her expression dimmed, and she looked away. It was our last gathering before we all scattered to the winds, so pretty much everyone was there. Chloe and I had both gotten into Seacliff University, a good school in the next city over. I wondered how many of our classmates would be joining us. Seacliff? No way I got into Seacliff, a few classmates said, shaking their heads as I asked around. But I felt a pair of eyes on me. What a coincidence. I got into Seacliff too, a happy voice said. It was Jessica. She was going to Seacliff University. That meant we'd be seeing a lot more of each other. Throughout the entire dinner, I never got a chance to talk to Jessica. Chloe was a constant barrier between us. I went home feeling dejected, only to find my mom and dad chatting in the living room. Have we notified all the relatives? I think so. I'll double-check the list. We don't want to leave anyone out. That would be embarrassing. The thought of my engagement party with Chloe made my mood sink even lower. I had really missed my chance with Jessica. Just then my mom noticed me and pulled me down to sit beside her. Sweetheart, Chloe is such a wonderful girl. What's not to like? We've watched her grow up. We know you'll be happy together. What's she getting at? I stared at my mom, and then it hit me. Mom, you did this on purpose, didn't you? My parents just looked at me with amusement, as if my question was the strangest thing they'd ever heard. They don't stop you from dating in college, you know. We thought it would be best to get you settled before you do something you might regret. But why go through with the engagement when you knew it was all a misunderstanding? Leo, my mom asked gently, do you really not like Chloe? Her question stopped me cold. I'd never actually considered it. The thought of her liking someone else, of leaving me for another guy, it sent a sharp, unexpected pain through my chest. Don't make the wrong choice, my mom said softly. I've been there. I wouldn't steer you wrong. I didn't leave my room for days. I kept the door locked so Chloe couldn't get in. Lying on my bed, I thought about it. I couldn't leave Chloe. Our lives had been intertwined since birth. A life without her would be like a life without air. I would suffocate. There was a soft tapping on my window. I looked up, then rushed over to open it. Chloe was climbing from her balcony to mine, a screwdriver in her hand. She started fiddling with my window lock. Are you crazy? This is to prevent you from locking me out again, she said without turning around. I can't stand you being locked up in here all alone. I worry. She kept working, and a few minutes later, she tossed the screwdriver aside and dusted off her hands. My window was now permanently broken, unable to close. There! She finally turned to face me and placed a hand on my chest. Nice bod. You little pervert. I just then remembered I was shirtless and scrambled to find a t-shirt. Chloe's eyes held an emotion I couldn't decipher. She took 2 steps forward and hugged me tightly. Leo, please don't hide from me again, okay? I know. My heart started pounding, infected by her sudden burst of emotion. I didn't see the flicker of wild obsession that flashed in her eyes. The engagement party was just a dinner with our families and close relatives to announce the news. The room was noisy and chaotic. I made an excuse and slipped outside. Just as I got to the restaurant entrance, I ran into Jessica and her mom. Jessica said a few words to her mother, who then went inside, leaving Jessica to walk over to me. Leo, there's something I want to talk to you about. Do you have a minute? I took a deep breath of the fresh, post-rain air and nodded. Yeah, what's up? I like you, she said, her cheeks flushing as she bravely met my gaze. I was going to tell you at graduation, but I could never get you alone, and you never replied to the letter I wrote you. Can you give me an answer now? My heart hammered in my chest. I didn't know what to say. It was true. Jessica had tried to talk to me several times, but Chloe had always managed to run interference. Sorry, he's already engaged to me. Chloe's cool voice came from behind me. A small hand wrapped around my arm, and she pressed herself against my side, staking her claim. I looked at the girl I used to crush on, then at the girl beside me. After a moment of hesitation, I made my decision. I gently stroked Chloe's head. As a happy glow spread across her face, I turned to Jessica and said, seriously, if you had asked me before, I probably would have said yes in a heartbeat. But I'm engaged to Chloe now. I can't accept your confession. I'm sorry, Jessica. Jessica nodded, as if she had expected this all along. She looked at Chloe with a hint of resentment. You never gave him my letter, did you? Chloe nodded, completely unapologetic. He's mine. Why would I create competition for myself? Jessica pouted and looked at me with sad eyes. When she saw no reaction from me, she turned and walked away, dejected. So that's why I never got any love letters, I said, looking down at Chloe. You were behind it all, weren't you? She just shrugged, a look of pure devotion in her eyes that was impossible to miss. You're mine. I can't have any of those vixens trying to tempt you away. I thought her logic was a little extreme, but I didn't dwell on it. I just never expected that. Once we got to college, Chloe's possessiveness would grow to terrifying new heights. With our parents' blessing, Chloe and I rented an apartment near campus and started our new life together. Having been together since childhood, living together felt completely natural. In fact, because we knew each other so well, it was easy and comfortable. Before we left, my mom had made me promise to take good care of Chloe. I took on the cooking duties, and she would help with prep. The day we moved in, she was giddy with excitement as we went grocery shopping. Seeing how happy she was, I decided not to tell her that Jessica was in my major. I didn't want to ruin our first day with a jealous fit from her. We had a wonderful first night. I cooked. She prepped. I cleared the table. She tidied up the small apartment, making it feel warm and cozy. When it was time for bed, we said our goodnights. She watched me go in my room, hesitating for a long moment before finally going her own. The next morning at breakfast, when I told her Jessica was in my classes, she immediately became suspicious. Don't worry. We've known each other forever. You should trust me, I said, raising my hand in a solemn vow. She eyed me skeptically for a long moment. I used to be right in front of you all the time, but all you could see was that horrible woman. I can't trust your promises. I almost choked on my toast in frustration. She didn't trust me? That was an insult to my character. Seeing my exasperated expression, she finally relented and chose to believe me, but not without adding a long list of restrictions. You're not allowed to get close to her. You're not allowed to eat with her. You're not allowed to talk to her. And you are definitely not allowed to touch her. I shoved a piece of bacon in her mouth to shut her up and quickly finished my breakfast so I could get to school. Her incessant nagging reminded me of my mom. If she was as bad now, what would she be like when we were old? We were in the same program, so during breaks between our big lecture classes, she would always come find me. She'd even pop into my classroom unannounced to audit the class. The moment she stepped inside, her eyes would scan the room like a searchlight, instantly locating Jessica. She'd shoot Jessica a provocative glare before skipping over to sit next to me. Once a female classmate was asking me about an assignment. Chloe walked in at that exact moment. The air around her dropped 20 degrees, and it took me hours of cajoling to get her back to normal. The next day, I was packing up my books after class. Honey, a sweet, syrupy voice echoed through the classroom, making me whip my head around in surprise. Everyone was staring at the doorway, where Chloe stood, dressed in an innocent, adorable outfit, beaming at me. This was a new one. She'd never called me that before. Amid the envious glares of my male classmates, I rushed out, grabbed her hand, and pulled her away. What was that about? What? I just felt like calling you that. Is there a problem? She asked as we walked to the cafeteria. I protested, telling her it was fine at home, but not in public. We were only freshmen. I couldn't handle the weird looks. She just smiled, refusing to even nod in agreement. In a crowded cafeteria, she'd periodically call out, "Honey," making my skin crawl. It got worse. One day, the line at the cafeteria was packed. The girl in front of me was holding a smoothie she'd already started drinking. Someone jostled her, and the straw brushed against my lips. The girl turned around, surprised. When she saw my face, she blushed and apologized. After she got her food, she didn't leave. She waited for me, and when I got to the register, swiped her card before I could. I'm so sorry about earlier. It was so crowded. This is on me. I tried to refuse, but she was insistent. I ended up taking my tray back to my table, only to have her follow me and sit down right across from me. The look on Chloe's face, who was sitting next to me, turned thunderous. She grabbed my head, pulled me in, and planted a firm kiss on my cheek. Honey, who's this? Her eyes were locked on the other girl. The girl across from us froze, then, seeing my resigned expression, mumbled an excuse and quickly left. I don't know her. We just bumped into each other in line. You're a taken man. You can't be attracting bees like this. From now on, you don't leave the classroom without me by your side. Chloe glared at the retreating girl's back, then grabbed my phone, unlocked it, and changed my lock screen to a picture of the two of us. From that day on, Chloe acted as if she wanted a tattoo property of Chloe Miller on my forehead. She launched surprise attacks constantly. She'd sneak up to my classroom and spy on me. If I so much as interacted with another girl, she would suddenly appear. To stop this, I started going to her classroom to find her as soon as my classes ended. My careful efforts maintained a period of peace between us. But at the campus winter showcase, I played a love song on my guitar. A few girls came up to give me flowers, and one of them hugged me. Chloe lost it. She dragged me back to our apartment and locked me in the bathroom for 3 hours. She only let me out after she was certain I had showered multiple times. I was furious, and I let her have it. That was our first real fight. It wasn't a huge screaming match, but it left me feeling resentful for a long time. One day, I got to her classroom just as a male classmate was eagerly trying to help her with a difficult problem she was stuck on. Excuse me, please maintain a distance of at least 3 feet. I have a fiancé, and he might get the wrong idea. Chloe's blunt rejection was startling. She looked up, saw me, and a huge smile spread across her face. She ran over and hugged me. Did you see how I just handled that? You need to learn to be like me. I hate how you have no sense of boundaries. She lectured me with such self-righteousness that I was left speechless. No boundaries? I'd rejected Jessica so many times she looked miserable, and the girls in my classes barely spoke to me anymore for fear that Chloe would come over and declare war. I think you need to trust me, I said, finally starting to argue back. Dating was one thing, but this was too much. For the first time, she didn't back down. She argued earnestly that she felt sick with jealousy every time she saw me talking to another girl. I tried to explain, one by one, that those interactions were either accidental or completely normal, but she wouldn't let it go. My patience finally ran out, and I stormed back to my classroom, fuming. I ignored her for days. Even when we ate dinner together, I was silent. I'd slam my bedroom door, shut to make it clear I was still angry. One night, she snuck into my room and tried to tie me up with silk ribbons. I woke up with a start and fought back, finally managing to throw her out of the room. After that, the Cold War escalated. I didn't speak to her for nearly 3 weeks. It ended when she waited for me outside my classroom after class and apologized in front of all my classmates. Seeing her tugging on my sleeve, trying so hard to please me, my heart finally softened. I took her back to our little apartment, and after enforcing some house rules by giving her a few swats on the behind, I finally sat her down to talk. Chloe, we need to have a serious conversation. Chloe's face was an unnatural shade of red. She fidgeted next to me, her hand creeping towards my abs. We're engaged. I will absolutely keep my distance from other girls. I will never cross any lines. You need to trust me on that. But you cannot, under any circumstances, try to tie me up. I have a right to a normal life. I swatted her hand away and pushed her slightly, creating some space between us. But when you talk to other girls, I get so jealous. It really hurts, she said, looking utterly wronged. I glared at her. Did she have some kind of psychopossessive disorder? We were like this in high school, too. Why is it that now I'm not even allowed to talk to other girls? That was before. We hadn't made it official. Now you belong to me, so of course you can't get close to other women. She said it with such conviction that I was now certain she had a mild case of Yandra's syndrome. That night, I talked until my throat was raw, sipping water between sentences. I finally managed to get Chloe to concede an inch agreeing to allow me a normal amount of social interaction. For a while after that, Chloe really did get better. She started to trust me. I, in turn, was very careful to maintain my distance from other girls, and I was finally able to participate in club activities again. To ease her anxiety, I would bring her with me. When I played basketball, she would sit quietly on the sidelines and watch. Before, she would have never allowed me in such a public setting, preferring to keep me chained up somewhere, away from the eyes of other girls. After we won the championship game, I threw my arms up in celebration. The other girls, understanding I had a girlfriend, kept their distance. Chloe ran onto the court, a huge smile on her face, and gently wiped the sweat from my brow with a towel before handing me a sports drink. As everyone around us looked on with a mixture of envy and goodwill, we celebrated together, embracing in the joyful chaos, savoring the beauty of our youth. From that day on, she started to have faith in me. Slowly, our relationship began to transform into that of a normal couple. At the Winter Showcase the following year, I was on stage with my guitar again. The stage lights caught the fringe of hair on my forehead, and a white button-down and slacks I was wearing made me look tall and trim. The girls in a makeup crew had even given me a pair of rimless glasses, and my handsome, polished look earned cheers from the audience. This next song, I said into the microphone, is for my girlfriend, Chloe Miller. Thank you for your trust. I know we're only going to get better from here. Declaring our relationship in front of the entire school brought tears to her eyes in the audience. As I sang, my gaze never left her. After the song, I walked off the stage, went to her, took her hand, and led her back up with me. This is my girlfriend, Chloe. Isn't she beautiful? My teasing, show-offy introduction made the students and faculty in the audience smile warmly. On the way home, Chloe was so happy she was on the verge of tears. She clung to my arm, her whole body leaning against me. Thank you, little Leo. You made me understand that a normal relationship should be like what you described, not my twisted, possessive version. Call me your big man. I think you just like hearing me call you that other name, don't you? All this time, I had been slowly trying to instill a normal view of love in her, and it had finally worked. Her possessive streak was fading, replaced by an acceptance of my ideas. But then she whispered something wickedly seductive in my ear, a poison so potent it nearly made me lose all control right there on the street. As a reward, I bought her favorite milk tea, hot dogs, and some street-side barbecue. I held the bag defensively the whole way, guarding it from her thieving hands. When we got back to our building, I took 2 steps up the stairs, then remembered something and stopped, motioning for her to go first. She stopped too, eyeing me suspiciously. We stood there deadlocked on the staircase. You first. No, you first. We argued for so long that we finished the milk tea and the barbecue and threw the empty containers in the trash. Finally, I covered my rear and dashed up the stairs, but I still felt 2 fingers jab the palm of my hand, which was covering my butt. Her signature attack lacked its usual fire. Maybe I was moving too fast for her to aim properly. I gave her a contemptuous smirk and sprinted into our apartment. Chloe Miller, prepare to meet your doom. The moment she was inside, we were wrestling on the couch. She kicked and flailed, but she was no match for my superior strength. Do you submit? I held her head down with one hand, feeling a profound sense of satisfaction. She was panting heavily. I waited for her to catch her breath before I growled menacingly. Leo, you just wait till I get up. No more trash talk. Dad is asking you if you submit. I wasn't about to play games with her. I was 6'1" and 180 pounds. What was I going to do? Be scared of this little sprout? I submit, she finally whimpered, her resistance crushed. Once she stopped struggling, I let her go and sprinted to my room, locking the door and leaving all animosity behind. As I lay in bed, listening to her frantic pounding on the door and her gritted teeth threats, I closed my eyes in peaceful victory. I was drifting off to sleep when the sound of a key turning in the lock startled me. I cracked my eyes open just in time to see Chloe tiptoe in my room like a cat. Planning a rebellion? I whispered. The moment she was close enough, I pounced, pinning her to the bed. She let out a different kind of gasp. I turned on the light and saw that she was wearing something incredibly skimpy, her long legs practically glowing in the dim light. Big man, she purred. Her fingers trailed across my skin, and I shamefully was lost. That momentary lapse in judgment cost me several days of playing nurse while Chloe recovered in bed. After that, I never refused her affections again. In return, I gave her all the security she needed. She knew my phone password, and I left it on the nightstand every night for her to check whenever she wanted. Once Chloe had enough trust in me, she gave me back my social freedom. At our final graduation dinner, Jessica even came over and talked to me for a few minutes, and Chloe didn't say a word. What did she say to you? Chloe, who had been bottling it up all night, finally grabbed me by the collar as soon as we got home, demanding an answer. Her fierce expression was so funny, I burst out laughing. She said she wishes us a long and happy life together. My laughter finally subsided as I explained. Her cheeks turned a light pink, as if she was embarrassed by her own actions. On graduation day, I proposed to her on the campus green. A girl from our class laughed and teased her. "So, you finally reeled him in, Chloe. Does this mean I can finally be his friend now?" "You can be his friend," Chloe said, clutching the bouquet of flowers I'd given her, tears streaming down her face. "But know your limits. Leo is mine." She bared her teeth in a mock snarl. All our classmates burst into laughter at her childish possessiveness. Jessica, knowing I was going to propose, had even come to offer her congratulations. Even though it's a shame, I have to admit defeat in the face of true childhood sweethearts. "I wish you both the best." But she didn't just give a gift. She had to say that to Chloe, which immediately put her back on high alert. That night, our last in the apartment, Chloe spent hours inspecting Jessica's gift, searching for a hidden love letter or something similar. It was a beautifully framed painting. It depicted a scene from our high school days. Me and Jessica walking together under the sun, me stealing glances at her pretty face, while Chloe trailed behind us, baring her teeth in a frustrated pout. On the back, Jessica had written, "There are always regrets in youth. I lost to you, but I still wish you the best. Chloe, treasure him." The note earned me a very sore back the next morning. After graduation, we moved back home. We both applied to the same company, interned together for 6 months, and then quit together. We didn't want a high-stress life, so we opened 2 small shops in our hometown, a flower shop and a cafe. The 2 storefronts were right next to each other, and we ran joint promotions. Buy enough flowers, get a free drink from next door. Buy a drink, get a 20% off coupon for the flower shop. A year later, our businesses, Leo and Chloe's Blooms and Brews, were thriving. We decided to close up for a month. We were getting married. Chloe and I hung the banners ourselves. The owner is marrying the flower shop lady next door. Closed for 1 month. The owner is marrying the cafe guy next door. Closed for 1 month. I stood on the ladder, hanging the banners, while Chloe stood below, holding it steady and shouting directions, attracting the attention of the other shop owners on the street. We smiled and passed out invitations and wedding candy, and they all offered their heartfelt congratulations. Chloe no longer demanded that I keep my distance from other women. She had learned to trust me because I had given her all the security in the world. That's why we even invited Jessica to be one of Chloe's bridesmaids. When she arrived, she saw the wall in our living room, covered with photos of me and Chloe from childhood to the present day. She stood in front of that wall for a long time before letting out a soft sigh. "I finally see where I lost. You two have so many memories. An outsider could never break into your world." "Don't say that. My husband is mine." Seeing that Jessica still seemed to have a lingering attachment, Chloe immediately bristled, grabbing my arm and glaring at her. Seeing us, just like we were all those years ago, Jessica just smiled faintly. When the wedding march began, Chloe walked down the aisle on her father's arm. I stood at the altar in a tailored suit, holding a bouquet, and walked towards her. Her eyes filled with tears of joy and anticipation. Her voice trembled as she said, "I do." I slipped the diamond ring onto her outstretched hand, and we stepped into the hallowed hall of marriage. Under the spotlight, we held each other, accepting the blessings of friends and family who had come from all over. The bouquet I tossed landed squarely in Jessica's hands. She looked at Chloe thoughtfully, then gave her a wry smile. After the wedding, Chloe cleared all her old rules, leaving only one: no private contact with Jessica. Apparently, inviting her to the wedding was a grand gesture of goodwill, and Jessica still seemed to have designs on me. And what about you? Conveniently losing the love letter she asked you to give me? I teased. She laughed and agreed to my one condition, playfully swatting me for bringing up the past. That night, after I was asleep, she took a silk ribbon and tied my hands and feet to the bedposts, humming triumphantly. Chloe, it seems you haven't learned your lesson yet. It was just a playful gesture. I broke free with a single tug and proceeded to teach her a lesson of my own. Do you know how sweaty your feet are? Get them off me. In our second year of marriage, Chloe developed a habit of resting her feet on me. I pushed them off in disgust. One time, my expression suddenly changed. I grabbed her, pulled her into an embrace, and threw the covers over both our heads. She started struggling wildly. I was laughing so hard my stomach hurt, but I held the comforter down tight. I had just farted. We had no secrets. We could both log into each other's phones and social media accounts. But our chat history was off limits to anyone else. The cringe would be lethal. I didn't dare even look at another woman. It would make Chloe jealous, and the price was always a sore back and a late start to my morning. I started trying to convince her we should sleep in separate rooms, just so I could get a good night's sleep. But she would always sneak into my room in the middle of the night. I'd wake up with a dead arm from her sleeping on it. In our 6th year of marriage, we each held a baby as we stood on our childhood balconies. Just like when we were in high school, we faced each other across the strip of lawn. I held our son, and she held our daughter. Hey, moron. My name is Chloe Miller. This is my daughter, Mia. Please continue to love us for the rest of our lives. Hey, shorty. I'm Leo Thompson. This is my son, Mason. I'll continue to love you for the rest of our lives. My name is Chloe. I grew up next door to Leo. He's only 3 hours older than me, but he always insisted I call him Big Brother. So I did, because he said if I did, he would protect me and always let me have the first bite of anything good. I dreamed we would live like that forever, happy and carefree. But as we grew up, he started to keep his distance. We, who had always been inseparable, couldn't even sleep in the same room anymore. God knows I spent countless nights unable to sleep, staring at his dark balcony, feeling more and more miserable. Personal space, knowing boundaries, to hell with all of it. I knew he was right, but I didn't want to be distant from him. We could be so carefree when we were kids. Why do we have to be so careful now that we were older? He grew more and more distant because he had started to like another girl. That traitor. He had promised he would marry me when we grew up, that he would only have eyes for me. Using our long history as my weapon, I started inserting myself between him and any other girl, even if that girl was Jessica Monroe. If he was mine, I had to fight for him. The thought of watching him run into another girl's arms felt like it would shatter me. Time and again, I sabotaged his plans. Time and again, I stood between them. A change began to take place inside me. I started thinking about hiding Leo away, keeping him from ever interacting with another girl. But he still decided he was going to confess to Jessica. I racked my brain for a solution. Leo, you can only be mine. Leo's mom saw right through my plan. But all my years of being the perfect sweet girl in her eyes paid off. She gave me some very helpful suggestions, and after I confirmed my intentions, we put on a show together. I successfully tricked Leo into my clutches, and I began to wear my jealousy on my sleeve. I couldn't let another girl get to him first. As time went on, Leo started to grow tired of my possessiveness. We had our first big fight, but in the end, it was Leo who taught me to trust, and I learned to let go of my possessiveness. We got better and better, but every time I saw him with another girl, I couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. The old thoughts would creep back, making me feel more and more insane. We had a second fight. That time, I felt like my world was collapsing. After my careful, timid apology, Leo's heart softened. That night, I snuck into his room, held him, and greedily breathed in his scent. I couldn't live without him. I had to change. I started to learn to trust him, to let go of that crazy impulse. He, in turn, learned to be mindful of my feelings, to give me the reassurance I needed. I discovered that the more I let go, the better our relationship became. It turned out that two people in love could open their hearts to each other, sharing everything without reservation. He would do his best to meet my needs, just to take care of my emotions. So why couldn't I give him my complete trust? That night at the showcase, when he pulled me on stage and announced to everyone that I was his girlfriend, he shattered the last remnants of my old way of thinking. Love wasn't about being tied down. It was about mutual trust and acceptance. I opened the window. A cool evening breeze drifted in. The fresh, post-rain air filled the room. That handsome boy, my boyfriend, was always by my side. It felt so good. My Leo. In our 4 years of college, at our last dinner together, I believe that everyone's good wishes were sincere. Everyone except Jessica. My husband is mine. Mine alone. No one can take him from me. When my husband slipped the ring on my finger and everyone cheered for us, we held each other, hand in hand. Even after all these years, my love for him hasn't faded in the slightest. In fact, it grows stronger every day. After our first baby was born, I would get jealous that he paid more attention to the baby than to me. After a second baby was born, I stopped being jealous. I didn't have the time. Taking care of a baby each, I finally understood how hard it was for him. It made me feel even more guilty. To make it up to him, I decided I would love him a little more every day. Thank you, Leo. You taught me what true love is. You gave me the greatest happiness of my life. I have no regrets. If there is a next life, please let me take care of you a little more. Because you took such good care of me. So good that I can never surpass you. My dear Leo, tomorrow I will try to love you a little more.